All right, everybody. So this is the 17th live stream of the Music Hackspace, and I'm currently holding the fort while Tim restarts his machine in the hope that we have some sound. So I don't have any hold music. I'm going to be entertaining you while we wait. And so as a background, Tim Exile has just launched a Kickstarter campaign for Endless. Endless is an app that is going to be demonstrated today. And as per the Kickstarter campaign, the app is also going to be a desktop application that allows to make music in a different way. And we'll see this today. So one of the title of the blog article that I wrote about it is Ableton meets TikTok, and I don't know if Tim agrees, but the idea is to add social features to making music, and I think that's something that he will talk about today, which I think is very interesting and worth exploring for sure. Tim is still restarting, and he will be joining us, and we'll be testing the sound, but we've spent the past 10 minutes trying to understand why he could not send me any sound. I'm very pleased and proud to be sending also this stream onto Endless's Twitch channel for the first time, and we're also live on Facebook and YouTube on the music Hackspace channels. So I have Tim actually in my ear as well on the phone. So just checking in on him. Tim, how is it going? He's loading up StreamYard. So he's going to come soon. Fingers crossed. So yeah, well, I hope everybody's doing well. You can put some comments and say hi. I have questions for Tim in both the chat section on Facebook, Twitter, not Twitter, Facebook, YouTube, and on Twitch, and we'll be able to see that. Right. And here is Tim, and I can't hear him. I don't know if you can hear him, but I can't.
Right.
Still can't hear you, Tim.
Still, I have no idea. Damn
if
it.
Someone can confirm that you can't hear him either, that would be great. You have audio. You can hear Tim?
Can anyone hear me? Can anyone hear me?
Noel. Okay, you have audio, but you have audio of Tim as well. Yes, you can. That's wonderful.
Oh, right.
It's just me.
Oh.
For some reason. Great. Well, thank you, guys.
Well, that's good. This is going to be weird, but you can hear me in the phone call we're on, though.
That's right. Yes.
Okay.
How interesting. So I'm so sorry, Tim. It was all my fault, and I sent you through a rabbit hole of trying to find out the problem, and I was the problem. I'm so sorry. Well, thank you, everybody, for your patience. This is the joy of live streaming.
It is indeed.
And we'll try to sort things out on my end. Anyway, welcome, Tim. How are you?
I'm good. Yes, I'm very well. I'm very full. It's been a very busy. It's been a very busy 3 months, really. Or 3 years. But yeah, no, good. Very like sort of happy tired. That kind of happy tired where, obviously the Kickstarter went, we hit our funding goal in an hour yesterday, which was a real thrill. And yeah, so feeling grateful to be involved with a great community of people using the thing that a great team of people have built. So yeah, good.
Awesome. Well, we should probably back up a little bit because a lot of people probably have not heard from Endless and the Kickstarter and everything. So where should we start? Maybe by explaining first what Endless is?
Sure. So Endless, well, I'll tell you what, I'll right off the bat, I'll switch to my split view here so you can see.
I'm going to put you on solo layout as well and mute myself. Okay.
Okay, right. So
all over to you.
This is the Endless iOS app that you can see on this overhead camera, and it's a live collaborative music making app, and it's kind of a platform as well. So here you can see all my music making just quite a standard sort of beat machine thing. We've got various drums, we've got various kind of note sounds. We can play chords, etc. A standard sort of music making, quite straightforward music making app. But in here on the front page, we've got a whole bunch of jams, and these are actually live jams where I can jump in right now. So I'll jump into this future techno jam, and now I can hear some music that was being made by this person, Darkroom, a couple of hours ago, and I can then go into what this person was making and say I'll mute that little acid bass. Well, I'll tell you what, I'll take that acid bass line, and so I can remix that. I'm going to put some distortion on it. Actually, no, that's a bit hardcore. I will not start off with distortion. I'll low pass it. Just cut some of the high frequencies out of it, and then I'll reloop it. And now immediately that what I've done there has been shared with everyone else in the jam. So you can go straight in and start to remix what I've done there. So I might actually just go on the front page and kind of let it update. So maybe there's someone here. So here's another jam where Elle's music was doing something quite recently. So maybe someone will join me if I jump into this jam. So I've just kind of low pass filtered that again. And there, so Ecolox, who's now in this jam, has just remixed that himself. Oh, I can hear myself back through the stream. There we go. There's a whole bunch of people in there because I think that we've got the endless community are in here already. So now I kind of started off this jam, and now there's a whole bunch of people who've taken over. Well, not taken over, but who are now starting to kind of iterate on what I did. So I can add something into this group jam. I'll put some reverb on there. So I'm literally right now I'm jamming with a whole bunch of people from around the world. So you can see these little splodges as they come in. And if we can go on the chat page where I can chat with people. You can see the names of the users who've done this. So this one was done by the Boundless. You can't quite see that on the stream, I think, but this riff was done by the Boundless. That was me. This was by the Sax Warrior. That's by Ecolox. So, just in the last few minutes, we've had 4 different people contribute to this jam. So I think I didn't actually mean to go straight into a deep dive explanation of how Endless works, but I think let's leave it there for now. And it's probably a good primer, like just off the bat, how Endless works. Yes. Can you hear me? Cool. Right. Yeah. So, I mean, my first musical experience, I was 5 years old. I and I started to learn to play the violin. Apparently, my mum tells me that it was the first thing that I ever said yes to, that I didn't want to do anything. So when the letter came home from school saying, does your son/daughter want to play the violin? She sort of looked at me and said, you don't want to play the violin? I was just like, yeah, I do want to play the violin. So I started to play the violin, and then I realized that I wanted to play the violin, but I didn't want to learn the violin because it's really, really hard. But I stuck with it. And what I loved about it is that it's an instrument that allows you to,
Can you hear me? Just
Yeah.
a second, just to interrupt. My mute was mic'd, and you could hear me just because we're also on the phone to solve some of the problems. So I was on mute. I apologize, everybody. My question was, Tim, as an artist, could you retrace the vision that you developed as an artist first, that then led to creating Endless?
Okay.
So yeah, just to rephrase the question. Yeah.
So I think the stream probably caught the first part of that. Yeah. Apologies. I mean, this is as much on me, this audio complexity, because I've got a fairly complex setup here that I'm trying to get set up. So sorry, everyone. But yeah, so there I am, young kid learning to play the violin. It's quite a frustrating experience, but it's very embodied. So what I loved about the violin is you put your bow on the string, you play, and music happens when you're interacting with the instrument. So it's always very much an expression of what you're doing. And then when I was a teenager, I fell in love with electronic music. I was listening to kind of bootleg rave tapes from it's like kind of early 90s, late 80s, Summer of Love thing. And I was 12 years old and very impressionable, and I just absolutely loved the sound of it. And I, as soon as I heard that stuff, I knew that I wanted to do, I kind of wanted to dedicate my life to that sound world somehow. And but because my first experience of making music was this really embodied way of making music, I felt that I felt that electronic music should be made that way. It should be something that's played rather than something that's kind of like designed and tweaked for hours on end and then pressed onto a record and then distributed. But I learned very quickly that obviously that's not how electronic music works. It's very much about composition. It's very much about perfection. Got into production, fell into that whole sound world, started releasing records, getting radio play. And alongside that, I was also getting interested in the technology side of things. I started messing around with early digital modulars like Sync Modular, Pure Data, and then Reactor. And then Reactor's the one that I basically went sort of full in on. And so, on one side I was, making records, kind of advancing my record career, artist career. And then the other side, I was kind of getting better and better at patching and making audio tools. And so it basically got to the point where I realized I could program the thing that had been my dream in the first place when I first heard electronic music, which was to make an instrument that would allow me to play electronic music in the way that I played my violin. And so, that started to evolve. Around the sort of mid 2000s, I started to tour with that instrument, and then that kind of overtook my recording career. And there was a certain point where I felt that like going into the studio and spending 100 hours making a 5-minute piece of music just wasn't really meaningful or satisfying anymore. And meanwhile, I was getting better at building instruments, and B, getting better at playing the instruments I made. And when I was doing that, and it was all completely improvised, and I was doing that in front of audiences, it felt so much more rewarding. So basically, I ditched the recording career, to go sort of full in on improvising. Being an improvising artist. But there's a lot of challenges to. There's a lot of kind of headwinds to being an improvising artist. The music, the recording industry is not set up for that. The recording industry is set up for people who spend 100 hours in the studio to make 5 minutes of exquisite music that is like very scalable and sellable and sort of mass marketable. So I think I didn't really get as far as I wanted to get, being an improvising electronic musician. So I sort of, that kind of kicked off this period of wondering like, okay, well, so what am I? What, I'm really into this improvising thing, but what's it for? So I started to spend a few years kind of doing talks, like TED Talks and stuff like that, kind of evangelizing for improvisation. But then at some point I was like, actually, the real opportunity here is to take the technology I've built and then make that accessible to other people. And that's really where Endless started. It's quite a long background. But yeah, that takes you up to the beginning of the story of Endless. Can you still hear me, JP?
Yeah, I can hear you. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Great. Well, thank you for that. And my understanding is that you first designed Endless as a hardware. I mean, like what you were improvising in practice was like a mix of hardware and software. And once I remember you played a gig. I mean, I've seen you gig live, over the past 10 years many times, and it's a huge rig that you have. It's a very big rig with a lot of hardware machines. How much of that ended up being, into the app itself? Could you today do everything the same way that you did back in the days of carrying this 50-kilo thing?
There are certain limitations to being this kind of form factor, and that's one of the big reasons why we're doing a desktop version. I mean, one of many reasons, but it's going to be one of the big advantages of the desktop version, that you'll be able to take all the quite sort of feature packed functionality of this and then break it out over a 40-kilo flight case full of MIDI controllers if you want to do that. And there are distinct advantages to that, definitely. And I think what I was saying earlier about learning, getting good at building instruments, but also getting good at learning instruments, is that it's when you've got a big thing with lots of knobs and faders, you can develop a lot of kind of muscle memory, and the barrier between you and the tool can really disappear. And I think if I may say so myself, I think we've actually done a fairly good job of translating as much of that experience as possible into the iOS app, because I think, and a lot of people who use it say that it's very it's very easy to kind of just get lost in it, where the instrument and almost you kind of disappear into this process of this flow state of creativity. But the essential, the core workflow, how Endless works, is exactly how the Flow Machine works. So I could run you through. I'll go. So I'll go split screen again, and
let's have another look at it.
Yeah. So I'll walk you through how it actually works, sort of step by step. So the first thing is we've got this looper. I'll choose something that sounds slightly nicer. Mating call, my favorite sound on Endless. Slightly weird chords. It's just one of the sounds on Endless in one of the sound packs called Flamingo Swamp, which is actually created by one of our community members, Tarpinian, who's a great sound designer, and he built this pack, and one of the sounds is called Mating Calls. He's got a really good synth collection. So you can see here I've got these pads. Oh, I know why it sounds weird, because we're in the whole tone scale, because I was in the whole tone jam. Right, let's just put that in minor Aeolian, and it's going to sound a little less horror movie. So I can play these pads, and you can see what I played, kind of moving to the left on the waveform, and I can, at any point, I can just decide there's something I like, I could just tap one of these bars to loop a certain section of it retrospectively. And then, so now I'll go into the mixer section where you can see that layer in the mixer. So one thing you notice about that workflow is that I didn't have to select a channel to record to. I just selected an instrument that I wanted to play, and then I played it, and then I selected a section of what I just played, which really removes a lot of the kind of admin, that's sort of having to like think ahead of what you're doing. Because right now I could just select another instrument. I'll select it. And so I can just keep playing until I get something that sounds like what I want, and then I just grab it. I don't have to record arm it. I don't have to select a channel. So it's really instantaneous. It kind of frees you up from a lot of the concerns that you'd often be presented with if you were working in a DAW. And then, you know, I just select instruments. Keep on building up like that, and you'll see if you go back into the mixer. So these, every time I make a new layer, it just finds a new slot for it. But I've still got access to all these layers. I can mute them, I can turn them up. So I'll just turn the drums up, and it's actually got an auto mixing algorithm that if you know. So I've turned these drums up really loud now, and you can actually see it kind of starting to turn down the other layers as well. So there's a whole bunch of stuff in here that like is really, you know, this is the stuff that, these are the features that came from like 10 years of touring with an instrument, working out what's actually really important to build a kind of a successful or a usable instrument for improvising. And I think so this next feature, I'll go back to those old levels. So this feature, how the effects work, I think is probably the most fun bit for me anyway.
Do you mind, sorry to interject, Tim, I just have a question about the looper, just before you move on to the effects, because we had at the Music Express, we had like a talk with Georgina Brett on Monday about her live looping experience, and we have an upcoming workshop next Saturday with Ruben Dax, who's also doing live looping, and it's a fantastic composition performance tool, which, you know, helps with the writer's block. You know, like you just throw something out, and the system just keeps giving back to you, and it can make mistakes, and those mistakes inspire you, and so forth. And I think you've pushed it very far. And there was someone on Twitch who said the retrospective looper is such a great innovation. I just saw the comment there, and I just wanted to get a bit more attention on that, because to understand what's different. There's many live loopers around. There's delay pedals all the way to the looper in Ableton, but yours is different. And I just wanted to interject quickly while you were on the subject to give a bit more insight into that, if that's okay.
Yeah, of course. So, I mean, there's a few trade-offs you have to make to get retrospective looping working well. I'll go back to the split screen. So with the main consideration is that with a retrospective looper, you're obviously getting, so when you use a loop pedal, a normal loop pedal, you set a start point and then you set an end point, and then the looper knows how long your loop is, and if it's the first loop, it'll probably set the tempo of the transport that the looper then syncs future loops to. So obviously, when you have a retrospective looper, you're getting rid of that start event. So that sort of by deduction means that you have to know the tempo already. So that's one of the kind of trade-offs with Endless. So it means that you'll hear with all these instruments. I'll turn the length down so you can see. you can see we're already stuck in a tempo. So that's one of the trade-offs that we have to make. So if, for example, you're using Endless with an external source, and unfortunately I didn't prepare an external source today, which was an omission. Oh, actually, no, I could. I'll very quickly, excuse me, for all the clicking, buzz, 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 click, click, click. Right, okay, so we should here now be able to listen to, so I've got the iPad mic running into Endless now, and I can just retrospectively grab any of these sections here. Grab any of these sections. Grab any of. So obviously that's looping in the tempo that's already set in the background. But if, let's say, I wanted to do a classic kind of live looper set, I'd actually need to go in to use. So we do actually have an old school looper setting, punch in, punch out, that will allow me to set a tempo with the first loop that I make. So I'll proceed to do some terrible beatboxing. So you can see there that that's done what like any sort of relatively advanced loop box would do these days, where the first loop you make sets a tempo. So I'm now going to go back and switch back to the retrospective looper, and this has set all my instruments to so it's set so basically. Ooh, oh no, because I turned quantize off. Hang on. Quantize. Okay, I'll just turn this up a bit. So now I'm using the retrospective looper because it knows where the one is, because it knows what tempo we're in. Actually, I'm going to change this kit. This is a bit. So you can see here that I can keep on playing. And I've got up to 8 bars here. So I've just captured an 8-bar loop. And what the retrospective looper allows you to do is you can retrospectively loop 1 bar, 2 bars, 4 bars, or 8 bars. Yeah, I mean that's basically the basics of the retrospective looper. I think that kind of covers how it works.
All right. No, this is great. Thank you for explaining. It's much clearer to me. Noel says so. Someone call it loop back looper.
A look back looper. Yeah.
Yeah, that makes sense too. So yeah, you're going to show the effect. So like the flow is that the core of it is a live looper with a retrospective feature, so that you can flow some sound in or record your own sounds, and then that's how you build your core loop. And then when you get that going, you can play with the layers, mute some of them, put them back in. But also, as you were just going to go when I interrupted you, we're going to talk about effects. So maybe we can go back to that.
Okay, sure. Yeah. I mean, for me, so a little bit of a kind of like history, flow machine / endless history. So before the flow machine, so I think I started. So the first proper kind of all in one live machine that I built, I think I finished it in kind of late 2003. That's when I first started doing gigs with it, and it was basically a kind of glorified DJing tool. It was kind of like a very sort of hacky version of the really fancy stuff you can do in Traktor and Serato these days, with all this, sort of I think they call it like flux. So and all the kind of effects, and none of those were really in Traktor at the time, or Ableton, because I really wanted to mash stuff up. So I built this kind of like 4-channel DJing tool, and then I added kind of like live looping into it, and then I added effects, and then I added synths and drum machines and stuff like that, and it became ridiculous and unwieldy quite quickly. And that was in building that machine, which I used probably until about 2006, 2007. That's when I learned all the real problems that you run into as a live looper. For example, like levels just getting out of control, and running out of channels to make things on, and like having to select a channel and having to look down. You want to put a new layer in, but just like, where have I got a free channel, and so on. And also in the sort of the machine before the Flow machine, I had all the effects running on each channel live, and they were all kind of so basically you were very limited by the amount of processing power you had. So when I built the Flow machine, I came up with this effects flow, if you like. And so I'll show you how it works. I'll just I'll get this riff playing again. Actually, what I'll do is I'll play some chords. So I've got a few layers going on here. So I've got, I've got 4 layers in here. So what I can now do with the effects, I'll choose, I'll just choose a really simple effect. So I'll choose a low pass filter, and you can see that it's already automatically selected the last thing I did. So it's just that's automatically routed through the low pass filter. And then I can just loop that. So I can I can perform the effects, and I can kind of bake that performance into the next loop that I make. So I'll go back to the previous riff. But then I can also, down here, I can select all the loops. So I'm low passing everything. And I can make a loop out of that, and I'll try and keep my arm clear so you can see, like, watch what happens to these layers down here when I loop it. You can see they've all gone down to one layer. So this, in the Endless community, is known as a smoosh, and it's actually very bad etiquette in a jam. But when you're doing it on your own, it's fine, because basically once you do this, it means that all the separate layers, like, there's nothing anyone can do with it. You can either turn that on, you can either stop it, start it, turn it down. Whereas if you've got all these layers here, then you can mute things individually and bring them out and fade them in, etc. So yeah, I mean, it's okay. So the final thing that's really cool about this is that, so I'm gonna mess around with the drums. I'm gonna key mash the drums. So I've kind of remixed the drums there with the key masher, which is this kind of like chopper upper tool. But then I'm going to use a zap delay. So now I've kind of reprocessed that through a delay, and now I'm going to use a comb filter. And then now I'm gonna, actually that's a bit too much. I'm gonna gate it. And now I'm gonna go into the sampler. I'm gonna sample a bit this beat. I'm going to take a different sampler preset and use that to I mean, we're getting into crazy world here, but this is all just through processing and resampling and re-affecting one single beat sample. So it's kind of, you can like iteratively, you can remix, and you can remix the remix, and you can remix the remix of the remix. And then, of course, you've got this history here, so you can just go straight back to what you had before, right back to the very beginning, just to my original terrible beatboxing. So yeah, but yeah, that's how the effects flow works, and it's yeah, I find it very powerful because you can just keep on sculpting.
Thanks. There was a question that I wanted to ask as well about quantization, which was partly answered, but I'm going to bring it up for our friends who are not on YouTube. Aaron asked, does it support other time signature?
Yes, it does. So in the tempo page here, we've got a whole bunch of selections. I mean, at the moment we're locked to 4. Did we put that? We did at some point we're going to have like 8ths and 16ths and stuff like that. But yes, it supports 5/4, 7/4, 11/4. So yeah, you can loop, and it's also polyrhythmic. So I'll get this going, and I'll loop something in. Hang on. Right, sorry, I didn't. Okay, I'll mute that one. Okay. So you can hear a loop of 5, and then you've got. So you could do something at 7/4. It's beginning to turn into. Oh, sorry. Yeah. So here you've got 5 against 7 against 4. So yeah, it's polyrhythmic, and you can use different time signatures.
The screen was not up when you showed this. Would you mind showing how you record a 5/4 against a 4/4?
Sorry. Okay, I'll go back into time. Okay, so here I am in the tempo page. I can select a time signature, so I'll change it to 5, and then I'll play in a loop of 5 with mating call. So like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And then I'll go back, I'll change it to 7, and I'll play another thing in with mating call. And then I'll change it back to 4/4, and then I think it's a nice kind of counterpoint going on. So yeah, many time signatures and polyrhythms.
This is very cool. On Monday, when Georgina Bread was here talking about her practice, she was very inspired by stuff like Steve Reich, and her own composition is about creating this counterpoint. And she prefers to use delay lines because she can have different time signature that she controls. I mean, a delay line that doesn't have in itself a time signature. So you manage it completely. You can create this very interesting phase effect or like shift, layers that change and switch over time where you can see emerge stuff, so it's really great to see that it's visible as well in Endless.
Cool.
Is it something that you did yourself with with a flow machine?
Yeah. So actually, so retrospective looping only made it into the flow machine quite far into the existence of the flow machine, but basically just a year or so before we started building Endless proper. And up till then, it was actually this. Oh no, the screen's not up, but it was using punch in, punch out looping, where so if you were starting from silence, the punch in, the punch out would set the tempo of the transport and the start point. And then all loops after that would then be snapped to the tempo and would be snapped to a multiple of like 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. But basically, so you could do polyrhythms there, or you could do very straight rhythms. But it was all by kind of punching in and punching out.
Great. So I'm going to jump on a different territory here, but we've seen the Ableton aspect of Endless. I mean, the comparison, I would stop there, but we haven't seen fully the TikTok one just yet.
Yeah,
and that's a fascinating world. I mean, I think our audience is probably, from what I know, is maybe not in the demographic of TikTok users, but I mean, I know TikTok because my nieces and nephew are using it, not because I'm familiar with it. But like, how do you reconcile those? And what are the features that you think music making need to be more fun, more approachable, and easier to engage from collaboratively?
Well, I mean, I think just collaboration really is the main side. Well, collaboration in like conversational collaboration, because I think collaboration is a very big catch-all term these days, and it can mean anything from partnering up with a brand to promote yourself to working together on a very, very big project that has one single end result, many years ahead. It can also mean, getting on a live stream with someone and having a conversation. And I think, collaboration in music, online collaboration in music, has been, a hot topic of discussion for a very long time. But usually, and there are already a lot of platforms that do that. You've got Soundtrap, Splice. Back in the day, it was like Ohm Studio, and Blend, and then SoundCloud to an extent has a sort of collaborative. There's a social element to it. But what Endless's collaboration is about is a very specific type of collaboration, which is, I call it conversational collaboration. And I kind of dived straight in there at the beginning of the stream, demonstrating how that works. But it's what I mean by conversational collaboration. I think this is how it kind of ties in with the TikTok thing, but the TikTok analogy. But the TikTok analogy also kind of falls down quite quickly. But what TikTok is about doing things. And you do things very quickly, and you share them very quickly. And those things you do are not necessarily there to be consumed, but they're there to be one point in a conversation of interactions, or at least a thread of interactions. So let's say you start some dance trend off on TikTok, and then a whole bunch of people copy that trend, and then people kind of merge that dance trend with something else to like turn something else into it. Again, it's also like the kind of meme culture on internet, meme culture. It's all these kind of like tropes that get invented and then merged with other ones, and so on. And the whole process is very conversational, and it evolves. And that's definitely the principle behind Endless, and how the collaborative vibe, or just a collaborative process on Endless. So I think that's particularly where the TikTok analogy stands. But and I don't think, it doesn't feel like there's been much like that in music tech, because music tech has focused on more like productivity tools, really, that work more like Google Docs, where you have a one shared document where everybody's kind of collaborating on one single truth, rather than sort of conversing iteratively to get to some place that they didn't really know they were going to get to. So just to run through, I mean, right now we, let me switch to iPad view. So right now we have, I mean, it's fairly basic, the social features that, well, when I say it's basic, basically, I mean, there's a huge amount more that we want to build. And this is only really just the beginning. But as I showed you earlier, we've got a number of jams. So if you go to the App Store now, download Endless, you'll see these jams on the front page, and anyone can jump in. So here, this person So Here did this like just 1 minute ago. and I can, I can go in there, change stuff, mute stuff, whatever. As I showed you, as it's the same workflow, the same workflow as a solo workflow that I was showing you earlier, but it's multiplayer, and I think, I hope that's self-explanatory. Is that self-explanatory? I'm just throwing that out there.
Are you asking me or asking the social sphere?
Kind of, I guess anyone.
I mean, I think it resonates a lot with me, what you say with conversational collaboration. I think it makes a lot of sense. And that conversation is sort of asynchronous, but also kind of supported in a synchronous way, because you can listen to the same thing together, but it's more like a dialogue where you do your changes, people acknowledge it, and then do something. I could imagine people jamming in that way. It'd be great to have an example. In fact, I mean, I know that some of your community are watching on Twitch. There's 24 people watching over there, and they probably are familiar with it. It'd be great to go back to what you did at the beginning of the session, where you had people jumping into it, and see how the dialogue, that conversation brings about people together.
Right.
And if you have very little music upbringing, music background, you've never played an instrument, to get a sense of how easy or how difficult, like this, still a learning curve, I'm sure, of how you can get started with Endless.
Well, actually, when you download the app, it's actually, I think it's got fairly good kind of, walks you through the first steps of making your first riff and, making your first loop. And it lets you kind of build up a few layers like that, and then offers you to then take those kind of first skills you have and then jump into the community and start collaborating. Interestingly, kids pick it up really quickly, and I think there are a few sort of DAW centric ways of working that people kind of expect with music making tools that Endless doesn't do. So if you're familiar with music making, that in some ways that actually holds you back a little bit with Endless. It can do, but yeah, it's fairly easy. I think it's you just have to download it, give it a try.
Great. Well, are you up for a little jam with our friends who are watching as well?
Yeah. So I'm gonna dive into the all around positive vibes jam, and I see the Boundless did something a minute ago. So, right. Okay, so I'm gonna take. So I think I'm gonna take this loop, this eardrop loop that was made, and I'm gonna key mash it. Oh, someone's muted it already. I'm going to... so I'm going to make a loop out of this. And let's see if any of the stream jump into the jam.
Could you say again the name of the session? I'm going to put it on the...
It's called All Around Positive Vibes. So if you load up the app and just jump in there, it's going to be pretty much near the top of the feed. So there we go. The Boundless just added some pads on top. So I'm going to add some reverb to that filtered thing that I just did. Turn it down a bit as well. So anyone else wants to jump in? Do jump in. There you go. Okay, so Derolf has just added some drums. Oh, damn, sorry, I'm not on the...
I'm trying to get in, but I don't see the all-around positive vibe, in fact.
Oh, and Teo's there now. Hey, Teo. So we've got Teo and Derolf in here, and I think maybe the Boundless as well. We've got, yeah, Teo, the Boundless. The Boundless is, yeah. So there's 3 of us in here. And now who was that? Oh, Stoic as well. So you can hear it has some riffs. Oh, hang on, I kind of missed Stoic's riff. We've got vocals. I love it when the vocals come in. Teo's the master of sexy vocals. Cool. Lily's here as well. Wicked, everyone's there. So what's happening now, which is quite often happens when you get a bunch of people together in a jam, is that it can kind of build up quite quickly. So I'm now gonna kind of mute some stuff out.
And when you mute, do you mute it just for you or for everybody?
Well, once you have to create a new riff, and then it sends a new settings to everyone. But now everyone's got those settings that Ooh. So you can see, the jam has evolved a lot very quickly into something very different. And I can also, I'm going to turn off autoplay, which means that riffs don't automatically play as soon as they come in, and then that's going to allow me to show you. So here I've got the history, so I can go back in time to everything that was done. Right back to. And then I can take any of these ones and I can export all the layers as stems. So I'm actually going to cancel that. But anyway, I'll go back to the top now. Turn on autoplay. So. So yeah, there's a lot happening now. We've probably got eight or nine people in here in the jam, just iterating on the music. So I mean, maybe I'll just like, I don't know, someone's changed the tempo. Brilliant.
Well, let's go back to it in 5 minutes, and because I have another question for you,
Okay.
and it'd be interesting to check in 5 minutes, whenever you answer the question, to go back to it and see how
it's evolved,
how the jam has evolved.
Yeah.
So the question is about the Kickstarter campaign. So you have this app, but it's not enough. Why are you launching this Kickstarter campaign, and what are you looking to achieve with that?
So, well, there's kind of, so the Kickstarter campaign is to turn what we have here into a desktop app and a plugin. So VST audio unit plugin. The desktop and plugins will run on Mac and Windows eventually. And the vast majority of music today is made on desktops and laptops with with Ableton and Pro Tools and Cubase and Logic and so on, and that's just where people are. That's where people who have the most music skills spend most of their time making music. So I think, firstly, it really makes sense for us to be there, and also a lot of the so right now we've got a bunch of built-in sounds in Endless. You can plug in external equipment, but it's difficult, it's complicated. There's lots of kind of hacking and cables and stuff like that, and it's difficult. So to have a plugin where you could run Endless as a plugin, launch it in your DAW, probably on your master bus, and to give you this whole workflow in your DAW to then allow you to use all your really fancy high-end plugins like Serum or Spectrasonics or Vienna Symphonic Library, that's quite old these days, but like Spitfire Audio, all this really high-end stuff, which we do want to kind of make the sound engines inside Endless better and better, but it's gonna take a long time, and we're never going to be better than an entire industry of plugin makers who've made some incredible plugins. So why not make it really easy to use those with Endless inside your DAW? Also, one of the things that we've learned from our community is that although people absolutely love to jam on Endless, that in itself is a very satisfying experience that people really love to do. People really want to then take this material and do something with it and arrange it a bit more. So we want to make it really easy to kind of use Endless inside the environment that you usually do that in a DAW, basically. And to allow you to kind of incorporate, say, a much more free-form collaborative jamming workflow with anyone else who you'd like to work with. So I think there's a few kind of key use cases for Endless. I mean, firstly, if you just like to mess around, but you mess around in your DAW and you've got a bunch of plugins and you'd like to be collaborative, you'd like to use those plugins in the sort of Endless collaboration universe without having to kind of get an iOS device and do all sorts of weird hacky stuff, then Endless is definitely, and the Endless desktop is definitely for you. Also, if you generally like to collaborate with people, and let's say currently you use Dropbox or Google Drive to to kind of bounce stems and bounce clips and share them with people, and then re-upload them and pull them back into the project, and you collaborate like that. Basically, Endless is that, but like in real time, in musical time. You don't have to worry about any of this exporting, downloading, uploading, syncing and stuff like that. It actually happens right inside your DAW. So that'll really, if you ever have collaborative projects that you work on, either just for fun or professionally, I think that's going to be really, really useful for you. And also with the for the standalone app, if you're more of a kind of like sort of controllerist performer type person, or let's say you've got a big you're really into modular synths and hardware and stuff like that, and you like to jam, there is a big big movement now of doorless jamming, where people like to just plug in all their hardware and be spontaneous and make music spontaneously with that hardware. But there isn't really a solution for connecting those people up together, and that community particularly is very community oriented. It's very collaborative, and I know that community loves to do stuff together. So I think the desktop standalone version for Endless that will make it much easier to kind of sync up your modular gear and pipe it into your setup, and then control that setup with with MIDI controllers, and make really kind of deep mappings to give you a big kind of surface to be very physical with. I think that's going to be that's the third sort of group of people that is going to be particularly interesting for. So yes, I would highly recommend that you go to our Kickstarter page and back us.
That's great. I mean, I'm just looking at the pledge so far. I mean, you launched yesterday. You delayed it by a day to avoid doing it on Blackout Tuesday.
Yes, that was very important.
Very considerate. Yeah. Very good. Thank you for doing that.
Well,
and
it's the least we can do.
And it's great. I support that as well fully. And an hour ago when we started this chat, it was £61,000. So it looks like it's going really well. In an hour, you got like £8,000, like another 10% more. So what are you going to do with all this money?
Well, I mean, it's all going to paying developers, really, and that's not, I think what we've done with the app so far, we have so there's one full-time guy, Ash, who's incredible. Big ups to Ash, who's really kind of shouldered the majority of the burden of building Endless. And then there's three guys working part-time on it. We've got Matt doing mostly web backend, Ragnar he's helped us with a lot of the kind of iOS side stuff because he's worked on that stuff before. And then Adam Stark, also from Memu, who spends the rest of his week basically running Memu. And
Memu being the gloves that Imogen Heap has been playing with for years. Yeah.
Yes. So for basically 2.5 developers, I think it's amazing what's been achieved, and frankly, they need more help. And so really, it's all about. It's all going to go on feeding people while they build the stuff, because it's building. So it's interesting. I think there's this perception that building hardware is, building hardware is hard, and there are some very complicated considerations, sort of supply chain logistics and manufacturing and tooling and stuff like that, which is a whole thing. It's very, very complex. But they're also, building software there's a lot of stuff to figure out, and there's a lot of stuff to kind of build and test, and the sort of the human time and effort cost in building that is considerable, really. So basically, the more we raise on the Kickstarter, the faster we can move, the more features we can put in, the broader we can go with all the many plans we have. Yeah.
Well, good luck with all of that, with all the raising.
Thank you.
And hopefully, you hit your goals. So I suppose there's more stretch goals coming up as
yes.
a seminar with Kickstarter. And did you have any features that are not announced yet that if you explode all the stretch goals that you will you add something else?
Yeah, we are. We'll be talking about stretch goals probably very early next week. We'll be looking at the stretch goals. We've got a list. We need to make a call as like what order they're going to go in. But I think we'll announce our first stretch goal Monday latest.
Great.
Yeah.
So there will be more questions coming from the chat. There's one that I will bring up in a second. But to leave anyone the time to ask questions, perhaps we could go back to the jam and see how that jam has evolved.
Let's hear. Wow. Oh, hang on. Yeah. Let's hear. Yeah. Well, we'll tell you what. Shall I go? I'll turn off autoplay, and I'll go back. I'll go back in time. Oh, they're sampling us into the jam. Nice. Let me find. Wow. Has evolved. Let's hear. Wow. And has evolved. Let's hear. Nice. Okay, well, let's go. Let's keep on going back into time. Craziness. Okay, they're basically they're sampling the hell out of us, JB. We set ourselves up for that. We walked into it. Of course this is going to happen. Of course this is going to happen. Like, what else would you do? Lovely. That's so good. Right, okay. If you're going to send me up, I've got to send myself up as well. Sorry, I just totally. This, like, what I just did is terrible jamming etiquette. It's the worst jamming etiquette. Sorry, everyone. I'm just trying to prove a point. I didn't even smoosh. It's even worse than that. I went back into time, basically made something completely different, and then sent it to the top of the jam, and like completely. It's even worse than smooshing. I mean, it's terrible. But anyway, I did it. That's what you get if you sample me. Okay, so we've got so Hollis smooshed back. There we go. I think I've started off a thread of chaos there by breaking all the rules. It's great though. It's so cool. It's so cool. It's like it is like,
well, the chaos is part of the fun, isn't it? The chaos is part of the experience of like getting inspired as well by others.
Yeah.
Chaotic.
No, it really is, and like any conversation, you can have a very kind of clear, and almost very precise and academic conversation, or you can have a very sort of like tender and loving conversation, or you can have just a blazing freaking row and screaming chaos. And there's so many ways to speak, and there's so many ways to to interact, and it's the same in Endless. There have been some jams that are just like pure ambient drones, and they evolve very, very slowly. And then you get jams like this that are basically, it's just like a bun fight, sort of audio bun fight. And it's just, there are so many modes of expression, and that I really, really love.
Yeah. Well, this is great to see the authenticity of the intention that you bring to Endless, and in the design, but also in playing with it. I mean, it's one of the rare occasions that I've ever had in my life of seeing. Maybe with the founder of Rolly, was actually a very good keyboard player himself. He designed the instrument and then built a company around it. But there's not that many other examples of founders who play their instrument and like are the biggest advocates. So it's a very rare occasion. So thank you for sharing that.
Oh, well, it's a pleasure. Really is. Yeah.
I'm going to bring up a question from the chat from Aaron. Thank you, Aaron, for asking this question. Will the plugin link the online jam with your DAW's transport somehow?
Yes, it
sampling,
will.
Effects and such.
Yes, thanks for very easy question to answer. Thank you. Yeah, it will. Yeah, it'll sync to the host. And there are also obviously there was some kind of like there's some more details under that. So you noticed you might remember earlier in the jam, someone changed the tempo and sent a riff with a different tempo. And obviously, if you're running the plugin in the D8W, it's not going to be able to respond to those tempo changes because you can't change a plugin can't change a host's tempo. At least I don't think it can. There may be workarounds in Ableton, but I think they'd be pretty hacky. So that is going to be one of the features. You won't be able to, your plugin will always be locked to the host's tempo. So you could theoretically have two people collaborating from two different DAWs, and they're both at different tempos, and you wouldn't actually know. Yeah.
Great. Well, thank you. We are arriving to the end of this live stream. It was a lot of fun to hear you and the community, and also share this live stream between YouTube, Facebook, and your endless Twitch channel. I've kept an eye on the comments there, so thank you all of the people who commented and participated to the jam. It was really cool.
Thanks, chat.
And so next week we have the 18th live stream of the Music Hackspace with another founder, Pascal Joguet, the founder of Jouer. You've met him, Tim?
Yes, I have. Yes.
So he was the inventor of the lemur, and if you've been doing music for more than 15 years, you probably have heard of the lemur, which had an amazing growth for a few years until the iPad came out, because it was essentially an iPad for music before the iPad existed. And then he had more than just one instrument in his life, his creative life. So we'd be very, very pleased to hear of his expressive controllers. And he's arriving at the end of his Kickstarter campaign. In fact, I think it's ending on the 9th. So we're going to interview him on the 8th, which is one day before the end. It went well. I think there are about 160,000 euros raised. So that's also a successful campaign in hardware. So very, very pleased to have a small trend here, because it's not always that we have entrepreneurs and innovators, but we have two in a row, which is great. And I hope you join us for that too on Monday. Any final words, Tim, for the people who are listening?
Back us on Kickstarter.
Okay.
Yeah, no. I mean, dude, I will have a look at the page. There's a few different. We spent a lot of time working out the deals, trying to make some offers that would really make sense for people. So the sort of full professional collaboration side of Endless is going to be, when we launch fully, is going to be a subscription service, because it involves a lot of data and a lot of bandwidth, and it's definitely a service. So it's going to be a subscription, but we are offering to our Kickstarter backers a lifetime subscription. So this is like collaborative, fully lossless, high quality, full backup, complete archive of all your jams, etc., in lossless audio. So that's a lifetime subscription to that. And that will only ever happen on this Kickstarter. It will never happen again. So, yeah, have a look at our Kickstarter page, and if you feel like backing us, we would love to have you on board and would appreciate your contribution. So yes, sorry, final sell. Okay, selling.
Yeah, no, that's fine. I mean, and I have a lot of empathy and support for the hard work that you have been putting in the past 5 years to get there. Ecolox just put this comment on YouTube saying that I don't know how to read
Waldorf.
that. Waldorf.
Yeah, Waldorf. So they're a great. So they actually existed as a band before they discovered Endless, and then but they've now, obviously since the lockdown, they've been playing together on Endless and doing some great live stream. So yeah, I'd really recommend going to check them out. Ecolox, could you post a link in the chat to their YouTube channel, if possible?
That's a great idea, and I will bring this up on the screen for people on Facebook and others to look at. Yeah, there was a typo in there, but it's not of much consequence. It should read with endless rather than with handless.
But cool. So yeah, Ecolox has just posted the link there. So yeah, we highly recommend go and see Waldorf.
Okay.
Go and see what.
I'm going to copy it from there and put it up in here, and because YouTube does not allow this. Anyway, here we go. This is it.
Here we go.
So knock yourself out and continue learning and watching Tim's wonderful endless app. Thank you everyone for following today. I'll see you all on Monday. Just a note to people who may be interested in the live looping workshop that was happening is this Saturday. It's been postponed to the Saturday after. The reason is that Ruben Dax, who is the leader of this workshop, is based in Brooklyn, New York, and the situation is a bit too tense, and we didn't feel comfortable pressuring him to do this workshop if he had too little bandwidth to prepare, given all the difficulties that are encountered in that part of the world at the moment. So I hope if you had planned to attend, that you would consider participating in the one that will be happening now on 30th of June. And on that, thank you everyone for watching and commenting. We always get a big kick out of your comments. Thank you, Adam. Thank you, Aaron. Thank you, Gennaro, Nella, Ecolox, and Nick. All of those people who come and watch, and Marek as well, who has been here to almost all of our live streams. So thank you. Keep commenting, keep asking questions. That makes these so much more interesting. Tim, I'll see you soon.
I'll see you very soon. Yeah, thanks for having me.
You're welcome. Thank you.